Hey, what's good? It's Andrew from producersociety.com. Today I'm talking to you about setting up a channel EQ on the Flute. Someone actually wrote to me in the comments section recently and they asked for an EQ guide on how you would go about EQing a flute. So, I took it upon myself to make this for you. Unfortunately, I don't actually own a flute, so what I had to do is I had to use Flute VSTs just to mess around with them and mess around with the channel EQ on the flute to see what kind of sounded best. So perhaps this isn't the most accurate guide, maybe, but regardless, that's what I did. And of course, I did some research as well to try and figure out what sounds the best. And so I'm just going to give it to you straight right now. Like, this is what I found sounded the best when I was EQing a flute. Like, you'll notice that I have a boost in the 500 range right here, a slight decrease or attenuation around 3,000 kilohertz, and then just like an increase between 6,000 and 12,000 in the higher frequency range for more brightness and clarity. So, I wrote here just as a summary, I said, because the frequencies of the flute lie between 300 hertz and 5,000 kilohertz, it's best to increase the frequencies around 500 hertz to add warmth, attenuate the frequencies at 3,000 kilohertz to decrease the amount of breathiness, and increase the frequency range between 4,000 and 5,000 kilohertz to improve the transience and brightness. I'm going to have to change that later. But regardless, there's a lot of things that you're going to have to keep in mind when it comes to EQing a flute. And this goes for pretty much all instruments as well, but flutes too. A lot of it depends on what kind of mic you're using. So, for instance, you got your condenser mic, your ribbon mic, and your dynamic mic, right? Well, from what I understand, from what I've read, a condenser microphone, that's usually the most commonly used microphone for jazz flute recordings. So in the case that you're using a condenser microphone, you may have to pay particular attention to like the higher range because it's going to pick up on those with a little bit more detail. So of course you want to pay attention to all of the frequency range. However, you may have to pay particular attention to this area right here. And for the dynamic microphone, because it's more of it tends to be more balanced in terms of the way that it records this particular instrument. It's going to be, you have to focus on everything equally. And then for a ribbon microphone, ribbon microphones are known for being much warmer. And according to the recording mag, he says that the ribbon microphone, because they're warmer, they're actually really good for solo flute recordings. And he says that they respond to EQ very well, which would make sense. So for the warm range, that's like in here, right? So if you're using a ribbon mic for a flute recording, you want to use like this around here. With all that said, though, like this is a lot of attention to detail. Ultimately, like you can record a flute with any microphone you want and just EQ like normal. You don't have to like do these mathematical calculations and recognize these patterns like, if I'm using a condenser, I focus this area. You know what I mean? Like, this is just like a general guideline, or rather, a starting point from which you can learn how to go about it on your own. I'm just trying to give you some advice rather. So some other things I want to talk about is reducing or increasing airiness, and I found that this is the range for that. By the way, I got a present for you. Go to producersociety.com/free mixing cheat sheet. That'll put you on my list to get a free mixing cheat sheet. And I send all kinds of cool tips and stuff that I don't share anywhere else. You can also join my forum at forum.producersociety.com. For now, it's totally free to sign up, but in the future, I'll probably lock it down and then turn it into a full course platform. So, like you can see here that these are like the higher frequencies, right? So if you decrease in this particular area and increase right here, it's going to I found that this got rid of the airiness a little bit and this brought up the brightness. So I'm going to show you what that sounds like right now. So I'm gonna play around with it a little bit, the EQ, to show you what difference it makes. So you notice that when I said that when you reduce the frequencies in this range, it kind of gets rid of the breathiness. So listen to that and you'll see what I'm talking about. So now for this area, so obviously this range is going to make it a little bit brighter, right? It's going to make it sound a little brighter. So let's move on to the next part. In terms of the clicking sounds, because I don't own a flute, I don't know at what frequency the clicking sound is. And by clicking sound, I mean like the sound of your fingers hitting the keys on the flute. I don't know what frequency that is. However, I do know that if you do want to find it, what you do is you just use an EQ sweep, right? So an EQ sweep is when you take like a narrow Q, right? So you select your frequency range and you make a narrow Q. I usually go up like that, and then you go like this. And then you kind of just sweep it across to find... You sweep it across to find where the frequency is, and that's what you do. So it's quite simple. And then not only that, but I also gave you some kind of guidelines here where I wrote about like the frequency range and what that's going to do. So I talked about the 0 to 250 hertz to 200 and 500 hertz to 2,000 to 4,000 kilohertz, and then 10,000 to 12,000 kilohertz. Which, by the way, the highest range, you're gonna notice the least difference in terms of your increase, at least in my opinion, or from what I saw. But anyway, so this is a rough guideline for you if you wanna give this a shot. Just mimic this and you'll see that maybe it'll sound a little bit better. But all in all, in the future, I hope to maybe, when I'm making more money, I can actually buy some of this stuff and test it out. I guess I would have to like learn how to play the flute overnight, but yeah. So if this was helpful to you, make sure you like and subscribe. And yeah, that's pretty much it I have to say for this video. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. All right. Peace.